I bought the 10 cheapest games on Steam that I could find, and I think I might have uncovered a conspiracy while doing it. These Steam games were all, they were all something to behold. Now, yes, I do know that there are free-to-play games on Steam, and those are the cheapest games on Steam. But a game that's made and designed to be free-to-play can actually be a good game. You know, there's a reasonable business model behind this game being free-to-play. But if a game on Steam costs less than 25 cents, you know it's probably something special. Special in a bad way, not a good special, like bad special. So I spent £2.12 of my hard-earned cash on 10 games on Steam. But I did have to do a little bit of curation for this though, because I didn't exactly want to install something nasty onto my PC. Because as we all know, Valve will just let any old garbage onto their platform nowadays. Okay, apparently it's a crypto miner, so I won't buy this one. I'm not gonna download a crypto miner off of Steam for a joke. So I skipped around a little bit just to try and find the ones that looked the most interesting. And you know, the ones that weren't gonna try and use my hardware to mine Bitcoin. And the first game on the chopping block is something called Smart Thief is clearly the world's best game made in Uni. The title screen looks like this, so you already know it's gonna be a banger. And the music is so good that it doesn't even loop properly on the main menu screen. Wait, the music doesn't even loop properly. The premise of the game is that you need to steal items from inside this room whilst not getting caught by the police officer. That's the whole game. You walk into objects in this room to pick them up, and then you get to the car and drive away, and that's the end of the level. The whole thing is just trying not to get spotted by the world's most blind police officer who also lacks object permanence and doesn't notice things in the room going missing. Every single level is this exact same thing, but with like slightly more items or a slightly bigger room. Or like 1 or 2 extra coppers pathing aimlessly back and forth in the same room trying to spot you. When you stand still, your character climbs into a cardboard box Metal Gear Solid style and the guards can't see you. And that's like kinda cool, I guess. When I first loaded up this game, I kind of had no idea what I was looking at. Like, the stuff you need to steal in the room doesn't look any different from any of the other props on the map. You know, it just looks like generic background props that are there for decoration, so I didn't really know what the point was. So the very first thing I did, literally before even knowing what the game was about, was clip out of bounds and break the game. All of this background stuff is accessible for some reason. You can just not walk inside the house and walk past it, and nothing back here has collision, and you can just walk through walls and stuff. And if you walk far enough left or right, you can just fall off of the map into the dark, empty void of nothingness. This was way more fun than the actual game was. I'm free from all of my worldly problems down here. Life can't get me down, you know? I tried to get a police officer to follow me down here, but they're actually coded to not come this far out of bounds. Bow, 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 bow. The soundtrack's crazy. Bow, bow. He's confused. He's lost me a minute. Hello? Which is weird, because surely they could just not let me go out of bounds either, right? The actual gameplay of the game is intensely boring. My first thought about this game was that it was a student project or something. You know, maybe it was made in a few days for an assignment or something. You know, some random project that was just plopped on Steam for a laugh. But as it turns out, that's clearly not the case. This game is made by a developer called Indie Games 3000. You're gonna hear that name a lot in this video. This dev has made a bunch of other games. Games like Indie Games 3000 have made yet another gem with Park the Car. It's an incredibly simple game. You just use your mouse to draw lines on the screen and the car follows the line. You have to get the car to the parking space and then you win. That's like the whole game. Like, this game's kind of a real game. Like the Thief game where you just walk around a room and pick stuff up, that didn't feel like a video game. But this one actually feels like a real game, even if it is extremely bare bones. Like, there's a puzzle element to the levels that actually makes you have to think about stuff. This is probably the closest thing I experienced to fun in the entire time I was playing these games. It's incredibly simple, but it actually felt like a real video game. The levels that have 2 cars in them actually required a small amount of brain activity to complete. It was nice. Although I lost my mind after literally 10 seconds of listening to the game's music and sound effects. Woohoo! But this game was at least an actual concept for a video game, mostly. And it was an actual real attempt at making that concept somewhat work well. You know, if they made this as like a throwaway mobile game or something, I wouldn't really be mad at it. But we're really missing the important part here, because the game itself right now isn't important. What's important is Indie Games 3000. This mysterious company that has like a dozen games on Steam that are all really cheap, really low budget games. Whoever these people are, they are up to no good. good. And to explain why they're up to no good, I'm going to have to introduce you to Metal Commando is yet another game made by Indie Games 3000, but this one brings up some questions, doesn't it? Because it's clearly incredibly different from those last two Unity stock asset video games that we just looked at. It seemingly has custom assets with a unique, albeit generic, art style. It's made for mobile and features microtransactions despite costing money on Steam. Metal Commando seems to be a far cry from the other games that were made by this mysterious Indie Games 3000 developer. And there's a good reason for that. It's because this game wasn't developed by Indie Games 3000 at all. Metal Commando is a mobile game, and if you look for this game on the Google Play Store, there's actually a developer contacts tab on the right. Over here is a link to a website for a company called Commodore Engineering. This website is not in English, but despite that, no matter how much digging I did, I found no mention of any company named Indie Games 3000. I guess it is possible that this is just an alias they use to upload their games to Steam, but why would they do that? That doesn't seem very likely. Why would they not just call themselves Commodore Engineering? What's the need for an alias? And why would these other games made by Indie Games 3000 not be on mobile attributed to Commodore Engineering? It looks like to me that Commodore Engineering is a completely separate entity from whatever the hell Indie Games 3000 is. Metal Commando is a fully fledged mobile game made by what appears to be a real web development company based out of Rome in Italy. And yet Indie Games 3000 has uploaded this game to Steam and has made it cost money. And anytime somebody buys this game, Indie Games 3000 makes money from it, despite the fact that they seemingly didn't make the game at all. They just stole it from some random Italian web development company or whatever. It's just a direct port with no modification made whatsoever. It is identical to the one on the Google Play Store. If I had to hazard a guess, I would guess that the games that Indie Games 3000 actually made are the ones that look like this. The ones that are blocky stock Unity games that have barely anything going on. And anything remotely more complex than that, no matter how boring it might be, is likely stolen or asset swapped and re-uploaded to Steam for profit. And they get away with it too, because it only took me like 5 minutes of research to find the mobile version of this game and see that it's probably not made by the people Steam says it's made by. But what normal human being is going to do that research? Who cares enough to do that? I'm only doing it because I'm a mentally ill YouTuber who wants to do it for content. And Valve doesn't give a shit. They'll put any old tosh on Steam nowadays. You know, as long as it's not illegal, ain't that right, Gabe? So this sort of thing never gets found, because nobody digs particularly deep enough into a game that's gonna cost 21 pence on Steam. In trying to buy 10 cheap garbage games on Steam for a joke, I have instead uncovered a conspiracy. I also discovered something else funny, that at the time I didn't think much of, but now makes a whole lot more sense. The mobile version is meant to have microtransactions, because you know, it's free on the Google Play Store. But the Steam version doesn't have microtransactions in it. There's just no in-game purchases available at all. But the Steam version is such a shoddy and shameless direct port of the mobile version that you can literally soft lock the game by trying to access the microtransactions menu. If I click this gem in the top right, the game just freezes. There's meant to be a menu to show that I can buy gems with real money or whatever, but the scumbags that stole the game didn't even bother to take that option out, because that would require time and effort. So you can actually just soft lock the game at the click of a button, because this game was seemingly stolen for profit and put on Steam by people who didn't make it. Absolutely mental. But I do have to talk about the gameplay of this at some point, so I guess, you know, here it comes. Metal Commando is incredibly boring. I spent the overwhelming majority of my time just holding 2 buttons down. One button to shoot and one button to walk forward. Occasionally I would jump, and that was the highlight of my day for the entire day. You have incredible amounts of HP and enemies have very little. There's meant to be multiple guns in the game that you can equip, but those guns are locked behind in-game currencies and microtransactions, which I of course can't access because the game is stolen shovelware that wouldn't allow me to access the microtransactions even if I wanted to. There was also input lag on my button presses for some reason, which is obviously completely stupid. But luckily that didn't become an issue because I didn't really need to press many buttons very often. Just holding 2 of them down worked a treat. The most wild revelation about this game is that it's likely not made by the people making money from it. The people who uploaded this game to Steam seemingly didn't actually make it. Yet they're out here making money off of its sales on Steam. And even if it's just a tiny amount of money, this is a pretty shocking thing to have hosted on Steam. And it truly goes to show that Valve's verification system for what can be on Steam is completely worthless. That's all assuming that this is stolen. Because, you know, maybe there's more to it. Maybe Indie Games 3000 really is part of Commodore engineering. You know, maybe it really is an alias and they don't want Commodore engineering to be associated with Steam. But quite frankly, I see no reason why that would be the case. And considering the giant disparity in visual quality between this game and this game, I don't really see how any other explanation makes any sense. So it seems to me that Steam allows stolen content to be hosted on their platform for profit. How crazy is that? I wonder what other degeneracy they allow on their platform. Oh. Well, I guess I'm gonna try my hardest to talk about this game without getting demonetized. And to do that, I'm gonna employ the help of my actual real-life, not anthropomorphic cat.
Rich, come here. Rich, come here, Rich. Oh,
you know, furries like animals, right? This is a cat. See, he's a cat, isn't he cute? His name's Reginald, so everyone wave and say hi to Reggie, cause he's gonna be with us for a little while to help me censor the man-made horrors beyond my comprehension that lay behind his pictures. The game is actually very simple. You know that monkey boss from Cuphead where you have to match the cards together? Well, it's that, basically. You have to click the tiles to flip them over and match the colored tiles together. And when you match two tiles together, it reveals what's behind the tiles. Oh look, it's Reggie, look, isn't he cute? So it's actually a really simple game, but the catch is that behind the tiles is not safe for work images of people's personas that they drew. And every odd numbered level, they have like some clothes on. Not enough clothes for me to actually show it in the video, but they do have clothes on. And then every even numbered level is the same picture, but they have no clothes on. Yeah. This game has just left a permanent scar on my Steam library. You know, I don't really understand why games like this are on Steam, to be honest. Now, hi again, Reggie. How you doing? Because if you really wanted to just look at some naughty images of anthropomorphic dogs or whatever, why do you not just Google it? Why do you want to spend the... Hi, Reggie. Why do you want to spend the time clicking on these dumb tiles and flipping them over when you could just Google it and get instant gratification? Like, I get that the game costs basically nothing, but who is even the target audience here? Is it because you want to, like, earn the picture? Like, maybe if it was a visual novel, it would make a tiny bit more sense? Maybe? But, like, who is buying this? People with money in their Steam wallet and a really good attention span? I genuinely want someone to leave a comment and explain to me why people buy these. Because it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I have so little to say about... Hello, Reggie. I have so little to say about this game, like, honestly. Something tells me that I'm just not the target audience. So I'm just gonna move on from this game as fast as I can. Thanks for the help, Reggie. Defense Tower Simulator is the world's most simplistic tower defense game. There's like 5 different towers that you can buy, and each level is just the same enemy walking down the lanes until the game ends. The final wave has a boss enemy, and the boss enemy is just a big version of the enemies you've already been shooting. There are different enemy types, but it's all cosmetic. Like usually in tower defense games, the flying enemies require special towers to shoot them down, but not in this. Like here, they're just flying purely for cosmetic reasons. There's some power-ups where you can summon stuff on the stage, but that's as complicated as it gets. The game is a really bog-standard, stripped-back tower defense game. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's also incredibly forgettable. The most memorable thing about it is that all of the writing is in incredibly broken English. Whoop! Not in, out, coin. Do you want more? Okay. Some bloke from Bangladesh or whatever probably made this game in like a few days, and I really respect the attempt at trying to write it in a language you don't speak, but it's not the best attempt ever made. There's really not too much to say here, to be honest. Like, it's a huge step up from the games I've talked about so far, because it has custom assets and custom sound effects and stuff like that. Like, at least an attempt has been made at something unique and different, rather than just using assets you can easily rip from the internet. It's not the most complicated thing in the world, and it's definitely not something I could play for more than half an hour, but you can at least see that some amount of effort has been put in. As a first ever game dev project or something, or maybe like a game jam type deal where you made it in a day or two, this is a relatively impressive thing to have made, and it only cost me 21 pence on Steam. It's a bargain. This game is another priceless Unity stock asset gem made by Indie Games 3000 of all people. And it's another one about cars. They love cars. You hold left and right to make these two cars turn in a circle, rotating around some sort of invisible center point. You have to dodge the moving blocks and obstacles and stuff with both cars to get to the end of the levels. And this game was intensely boring. It's stripped of all character and literally only has one single mechanic, which is turning a wheel that has points on either side. There's really nothing else to this game at all. Like, truly, there is nothing else to say. The music just constantly repeating makes me want to die, but that's the most exciting thing I can say about it. It's the same song. It's the same song from Park My Car. No. So if I'm at least gonna have to talk about more of the beautiful and beloved games made by Indie Games 3000, then I'd at least like to talk about one that's actually worth making fun of. Farm Day 2021 is yet another example of shenanigans being pulled off by our mysterious friends. This game is clearly another mobile port. It even has that login bonus thing that a lot of mobile games have to try and keep you coming back. It even had a weekend bonus. And unlike Indie Games 3000's terrible port of Metal Commando, the microtransaction screen doesn't actually softlock the game in this one. It just doesn't do anything when you click the buttons in the menu. So that's a bonus. The game actually functions slightly better than usual. But this game is clearly designed for mobile, and clearly has a very different art style to the other slop that they produced, which makes me think that this game, just like Metal Commando, is stolen from another developer and put on Steam to make a profit. Although this one I have a lot less evidence to back that claim up. A little bit of digging led me to a game called Mini Farm 2020, a game that used to be on Steam but was removed for one reason or another. Mini Farm 2020 was also allegedly developed and published by the elusive Indie Games 3000. Mini Farm and Farm Day are literally the exact same game. The only difference is the name. The only traces I could find of this game on mobile under either of the names was someone letting you download a VPK file of the game and put it on your phone. If there are any other names for this game, I just couldn't find them. But if I had to hazard a guess, I would assume that this is yet another stolen mobile game that they've plonked onto Steam to try and make a quick buck. But this time, they've actually tried to change the name once or twice to make it harder to tell that it's clearly a stolen video game. Although this one's a little bit more tenuous, because I can't actually find any good concrete evidence that this one in particular is stolen, because I can't find a version of it on the Google Play Store or anything like that. All I'm really going off of is the fact that Metal Commando was likely stolen and ported onto Steam, because in that one's case, I could find that game on Google Play, and I could see that it had different developers listed on the Google Play Store than it did on Steam. But in this case, the evidence is less concrete. So just in case any of the lawyers at the trillion-dollar company that is Indie Games 3000 are watching, this is just speculation, and I am not making a defamatory claim against your enterprise or anybody who works for it. We good? Okay, good. So this game's definitely stolen, right? Like, the game's very clearly a port from a mobile game, and it's very clearly visually distinct from the sort of thing that they usually make. And if anybody in the comments wants to do more digging on my behalf, then I'd really appreciate that, because I couldn't find any concrete proof on this one. It's a cheap mobile game ported to Steam, with all the stereotypical bells and whistles that you would expect of a mobile game of its caliber. The actual gameplay is that you just click through menus, basically. You click farmland to make stuff grow, then you click machines to make stuff into food, then you click staff members to hire them to sell your food. It's just clicking around menus and waiting. That's the whole game. And there's this in-game currency that you can buy for real-world money that will speed up how fast your crops grow, or how fast your machines make stuff. Each mission is timed, and as the missions get harder and harder, they become less and less possible to complete without spending money on crappy diamonds or whatever. It's classic mobile game garbage, but instead of being on mobile, it's on Steam, and costs 21 pence. And the microtransactions on the Steam version literally don't work, probably because it's a shoddy mobile port. So you'd likely have no chance of winning the later levels, even if you did inexplicably love the game randomly. It's full of weird graphical glitches, and the gameplay is incredibly boring. And the tutorial lady looks like this, because I guess this is how you convince mobile game whales to spend a bunch of money on your game. I don't know, man, this game's weird. What am I doing with my life, actually? Indie Games 3000 Incorporated Limited the movie have got yet another game on Steam for cheap, and it probably makes them some amount of money sometimes, maybe. And seemingly, that's all they care about. And to nobody's surprise, this is not the last time we'll be hearing about Indie Games 3000, because they just keep on getting away with it. Cake Shop Simulator truly is the worst game on this list by miles. Calling it a game is actually incredibly generous, because it's not a game at all. It's like a point and click adventure game, but there's no adventure. You just point and click. You have to click the stupid idiot's order, then click and drag ingredients into a bowl, then awkwardly pour the contents of the bowl into a cake tin, then you put it in the oven. Oh, and the oven's the good bit. This is the challenging part, right? Because you have to turn the oven on and then turn it off before this meter gets to the red bit at the top. And if you just let the cake burn, you get a game over screen, and that's all that happens. I was hoping it would be like more exciting when I burnt the cake, but it's not. You just get like this dude comes up and says you lost. That is the entire game. It's just clicking through menus repeatedly. And if you try and put the ingredients in the bowl in the wrong order, it doesn't work. There is literally zero challenge whatsoever. But you know what? That's not even the worst part. The worst part is that the ingredients are limited. So as you do missions, you eventually run out of milk, so you can't continue the game. But if you try and click the little plus sign to get more milk, the game soft locks. You click this plus button and the game stops allowing you to click anywhere else on the screen, and you just have to Alt F4 out of the game. My guess is that this is yet another shoddy mobile port that they may or may not have stolen, where the mobile version is meant to have microtransactions. But since the Steam version doesn't have that, the game just freaks out and soft locks because Indie Games 3000 didn't ever bother to fix the most absurdly basic bug in the game before stealing it from someone else and plonking it on Steam for 21 pence. Calling this a game is actually offensive to games, right? Really? And it's just crazy that this gets to sit alongside all the actual video games that get to go on Steam. But the shenanigans of this maybe video game company don't even end there. Viking Warrior was the only game on this list that was more than 500 megabytes. Everything else was under 500 megabytes, but this one was 10 gigabytes on my PC. 10 gigs of funny Viking game. And this game is extremely odd. It's like Dark Souls, but if you only gave FromSoft like 6 hours to make the entire game. There's a cutscene at the start with like some crappy epic voice acting that tells the story, and it's really goofy. You have no way to change your controls or sensitivity or graphics options or anything like that. So you can't turn off this god-awful motion blur in any way. You can see your controls by pressing K, and you just have to remember them, I guess, or keep peeking at them constantly. There's just like a big long line of enemies randomly plopped between where you start and where you need to go. There's a melee weapon and a dodge roll, so I guess it expects you to play it like a really terrible Dark Souls. But you can also just spam a bunch of ranged attacks at enemies until they die. It's incredibly boring. You just spam spells with a quickly regenerating mana pool in a bland-looking level that was likely made of stock Unreal Engine assets. When you get to the next level, there's a super exciting crazy cutscene again, and then you're in another level that's basically the same thing, but now you're inside. Funny thing is, there's actually a continue button on the main menu, but it doesn't actually do anything, because there's no save function whatsoever. So when I press the continue button, I just go back to the first level anyway. But after playing this hollow shell of a video game, I decided to do a bit of digging in the reviews to see what people said, and it turns out that I made a horrific discovery. This game is what's called an asset flip. Basically, you take a game that already exists, change one or two basic assets, and then pretend you made it and put it on Steam for profit. This game is just an asset rip of a different game called Dark Fantasy Warriors. It's apparently the exact same game with one extra level and a different model for the playable character. And Dark Fantasy Warriors is made by none other than Indie Games 3000. Again! It's literally the same people again. They're back. So despite the main developer and publisher being listed as Viking Warrior, Indie Games 3000 is a listed developer of this game, and they're actually replying to negative reviews. Who are these people? Like, who are these people? Where did they come from? It's an asset flip of a game that Indie Games 3000 supposedly made and also published with a different developer and publisher listed on Steam? Why? Why would they not just call themselves Indie Games 3000 again? Is Dark Fantasy Warriors also stolen? Is it just like a big long chain of no-name developers stealing from one another until one of them makes more profit than the rest? Like, what's actually happening? If I wanted to keep researching this, I wouldn't even know where to start on investigating where any of this first came from. This rabbit hole must go so much deeper than I first thought it did. I don't even know where I'd have to look to try and figure out what the hell is going on with Indie Games 3000. If I Google Indie Games 3000, it comes up with a list of their games on Steam and a website that says it's trying to steal my personal data. You know what? I'm just gonna have to leave it up to you people in the comments. You've probably got more time on your hands than I do, probably, maybe. Actually, probably not. The comment section's gonna have to decipher all of this for me and then tell me what it is, because I don't know what the hell I'm looking at, and it's driving me insane. But I mean, I guess it could be worse, couldn't it? You know, it could be like another lazy, not safe for work puzzle game. Oh my god, there's another one. There's another one. So hi Reggie, so this one is a little bit different from the other ones that we talked about. This is like one of those slide puzzles. The image starts all jumbled up and you have to rearrange the pieces to get the image to display properly. And that's the whole game. Starts off with some images where she's wearing clothes, still not going to show them by the way, and then eventually there's no clothes. That's the whole video game. That's the entire video game. The audio in the background is just constant didgeridoo music blaring loudly over the entire game. And there's also audio in the background of a woman who's, enjoying herself, which I'm not gonna let you listen to. You know, it's on Steam, you can go buy it. The Australia theme is incredibly weird. Like, I have no idea what Australia has to do with any of this. I think it's just an excuse to have funny didgeridoo music in the background, but I have no idea. This game was marginally better than the other one. Not because it's actually higher quality or actually worth my time or money, but because at least this one wasn't furries. Like, this is an actual human being. I really do wish it didn't have to stain my Steam library though. Stain my Steam library and my soul. Buying the 10 cheapest games on Steam was clearly a mistake. I've got multiple games that I should be ashamed of burned into my Steam library for the rest of my life, and I found myself falling down a rabbit hole of soulless cash grabs that I didn't even know existed. There's a whole little world out here of people making low-effort garbage and even stealing other people's content just so that they can make a quick buck. And Steam's lack of content moderation allows for tons of complete garbage to find its way onto Steam. I don't know if any actual human being that works at Valve is even looking at what does and does not get verified onto the platform, because I somehow struggle to believe that games that literally don't function would be allowed onto Steam if anyone was actually vetting what does get to go on the platform. Although I guess as long as it's not illegal, right Gabe? Steam is a gargantuan platform that has a near monopoly on the PC gaming market, and you'd think that this would make the people high up at Valve feel like they had a huge responsibility to make sure that the platform is truly worth the power it has over the industry. But clearly not. Clearly that's just not the case. Because I can excuse low effort games, and I can excuse weird ass garbage like this too. But barely functioning mobile ports, stolen content and Bitcoin miners should surely have no place on Steam whatsoever. Surely this should be a no-brainer to anybody. Or you know, at least you'd think so. But as usual, Valve works in mysterious ways. But as long as it makes Gabe a quick buck, right? Thanks for watching.